Today I'm going to share with you how you can import a game model into Blender software and then how you can fix some of the things that you see on the model. When you first import the model into Blender, you will notice that the model doesn't look exactly how you expected it to be. There are some things like the hair or the eyes, they don't look right. As you can see here, this model, the hair is different. So what we need to do is first thing we go into the shading tab. So this is the part where you would determine how that you would shade the character, whereby shading means you apply the textures, you apply the maps onto your model so that they would appear correctly on screen. So you would get the correct kind of hair and the correct kind of appearance for the eyeballs, so on and so forth. You go into the shader editor. What we're gonna do next is you click on the hair, so you can see there's an orange outline. So this is the part that we have selected on the model, and you can see on the bottom part, which is the shader editor area, and you can see that I'm trying to drag several parts. These are what we call nodes in Blender. So the shader editor would have different nodes, and all these nodes, they are linked together so that they will be able to tell Blender how to project or render your image, your model correctly. So what I'm trying to do right now is I'm pulling all these orange colored nodes up here. I'm trying to shrink it down so that I can give you a better view of what's going on. Right. We have also the red colored node on the far left. That will be the UV nodes, and then the purple ones would be the mapping nodes. I'm gonna pull this to the right a little bit and then pull the bottom part towards the top so you can have a better view of the shader nodes. So we can see that there are 4 main orange nodes. These are the texture nodes, and they're all linked together from the left to right. And then this part here, that is the material that you're working with. So this one is named 27 underscore hair underscore 0 dot 25 underscore 0 underscore 0. So that's just the name of the material for the hair that this model has. So if I make some adjustments to the shader node, you can click on it, and then if you click M, it would be turned off. M is for muting. You can mute it, and you can see that when you mute it, the hair turns black because there's absolutely no information being transferred to the material output node. It's turned off, it's muted. You can also turn off the shader nodes or turn off any of the nodes by breaking up the link. So the next thing I'm gonna do is that I am going to try and duplicate this network of nodes here by selecting all of them all together. So you just click and drag, you have them all selected, press Ctrl C to copy and then Ctrl V to paste. And once you have pasted the copy, you could just select everything by dragging it out. So you would have an exact copy of it as a backup, and you can make changes to it. And you have something to refer back to if ever you make any mistakes or if you get into any problems. Inside the shader node, you can have more than one material output, but only one material output node can be active at any one time. In each of these nodes, you can choose the different materials. Although a texture image has already been assigned to it, you can change it later. You can change it in whichever way you want. So one way is to click on the triangle on the left, and it will show you a list of image textures that you could choose. Or you could just go to the top left corner. Because you are already in the shading mode, you will be able to choose your folders on the top left corner, and you could specify how the image textures thumbnails should appear. You could have them in large thumbnails, you could have them in a detailed text list. I prefer them to be in large thumbnails so that I could see what are the images that I'm looking at. Like for example, right now I'm looking at one of the image textures for the hair. .tga is just a image file format, And now you can click on it and you drag it down to the lower left corner section, and then you can enlarge it, or you could click on the hand icon and drag it around to see how the texture looks like. How I make changes to the nodes is that I can shift it around, by clicking on the links. I can pull them off, I can break the links, and then as you can see, once the link was broken, the appearance of the hair changed as well, because you've broken the information. You can delete the nodes like what I did just now by selecting, clicking on it and then pressing delete, and then you can drag out the image texture that you want to be linked to the shader node. So I'm just doing some demonstration here on how to link different nodes together. One important point is that it's quite color coded. So if you see a yellow dot, it can only be connected to another node with a yellow dot. It cannot be connected with a different colored connector. What we're supposed to do is that we use the original configuration. When you first open the file, you will have all the nodes set up like this. On the right side, you will see the little globe icon at the bottom, the pink globe. And when you click on it, you will see this right section on the lower right corner. This is the material properties section. And here you can see all the different settings that would determine how the material you want rendered inside Blender to look like. And then there's the preview. You see the little 3D sphere in the preview section. That is how the hair looks like right now when it's shown in a 3D sphere shape. Then what we're gonna do here is that we're gonna look at some of the nodes here. This one is the hair environment node, and this is the Bumpmap node. This is the bump mask node. So image texture node. And if you pull them off, like the environment, we don't really need the hair environment image texture node. So you can just turn it off by breaking the link, like what I did just now by just pulling the link off. If you connect it back, then you will see that, yep, that's how it will look with it connected. So it's not really what we want. So we can just get rid of this. What I'm trying to do now is I just put it away at one part because I don't really want it, and I'm gonna move the other nodes that I want further up. The next thing I want to do is that I'm trying to add a specular node to this model here. As you can see, the hair, it looks pretty nice right now, but it seems to have a lot of white highlight. So it shows that the light is bouncing off the hair, and so you can see a lot of white on it. You can also shrink the nodes by double clicking on the colored top part. Once you click on it, it will shrink, so you can save some space on your shader editor area. So now I connected the mapping node onto the vector part of the new specular node. And then I'm going to connect it to the shader node. And as you can see, once you connected it, so this is how the hair looks like. So let's have a better look at it right now. So next thing we want to do is that we're going to fix the eyes right now, because the eyes don't look right. Click on the eyeballs and you will see that it's selected with the orange circles. And you can also see in the shader editor on top of it, the materials name is changed to 27-eyeballs GL. So the eyeballs would have its own set of nodes network, its own setting for how the nodes are set up. Let me show you how it looks like. So this was how it came as it was. It was arranged like this. You can rearrange it. I'm just going to try and drag all the nodes nearer to each other, so it will be easier for us to see all together. But for the eyes, we are going to do something a little bit different. We don't necessarily need the same setup as we did for the hair. We can do things a little bit different. Let me show you how. So if you want to add anything, you can just go to the Add tab and then select the item that you want to add into the shader editor. So first thing I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna add a material output, and then I'm going to add a shader, the principal BSDF shader. And then the next thing I need will be the image texture. So I'm gonna pick this eyeball here. And then I'm gonna connect all the nodes together. But make sure you set the color space to sRGB for the image texture for your eyeball. And then you connect it to the connect the principal BSDF to the material output. Notice how the eyes changed. It's still not done yet. We still need to make a few more adjustments, some settings to be made. So you can see in the preview little window on the right, that is how the eyeballs look like as a 3D sphere. Doesn't really look like an eyeball, so we're gonna make some changes to the settings. Set the specular tint to 0.5. And now we go to the material properties settings. This is how the settings should be used, or in my case, how I leave them to be. It's very important to note that for the settings down here, your blend mode is put to the correct setting, as well as the shadow mode. So here I put it as blend mode opaque and shadow mode as opaque for the eyeballs. As you can see in the preview window, now the eyeball looks more like an eyeball, but we're still missing that glossy feeling to the eyeball. For the material selections, you can also click on it and then type in the keywords that you want. Like for example, if I'm looking for all the materials that has to do with eyes, I will type in eye and it would show me what different materials they have for this model. Like for example, you can see here they have materials for the eyeballs, materials for the eyeball, GL, I suppose GL stands for glass, and then eyebrow. You have to be careful not to pick the wrong materials for different parts of your model. Like for example, this one is actually the material for the eyebrow, and I have the eyeballs selected, so now it's applying the eyebrows materials to the eyeballs, and that's why you see it looks very weird, because it's not meant for the right part of the body. So we don't want that. We're just gonna turn it back to how it was before. So what we do here is we make some adjustments to the specular. As I mentioned before earlier, specular actually determines how the lights, the highlights parts of a glossy surface should look like. So if we make some adjustments to this, we should get something like a glossy glass effect reflection on the eyeballs. We reduce the roughness. Let's turn it around to see how it looks like. We could see that the eyebrows have a little bit of a problem. There seems to be some white stuff on the eyebrow, so we're going to try and fix that as well by messing around with the settings. So we go to the material properties, and right now the eyebrows, you can see that the preview looks like that, so we're gonna change that. We're gonna pull the lever down all the way to black. We're trying to change the environment. It doesn't look right. Click on it and choose RGB. And after that, pull the lever all the way down to black. So now your eyebrows, they look a little bit better. they look nice now. They look like as if how it should look inside your Blender. And lastly, just want to show you when you go into this part, the viewport shading, you can actually change how the reflection shows inside the eyeballs. You can adjust the strength. You can adjust also the background value, and you can also choose the rotation. So that's pretty much about it on how you can put a game model, 3D model into Blender. And you just have to remember that what we're doing right now is that we're just trying to learn how to make some settings, some adjustments in Blender. We're learning Blender, and when people rip the game models off games and they put it inside Blender, it's not what Blender was meant to do. That's why you have to have a plugin like the XPS Blender plugin, the XPS Mesh, so that it could import XPS files. And then when it goes into Blender, because this is not what Blender was meant to do, it was not meant to take all these ripped game model files and to render them. That is why when it goes into Blender, most of the time the hair and the eyes, they will look very weird, because when the models were rendered inside the game, it interacted exactly as it was meant to be with the game engine. But when you put it inside Blender, it's not the default or the native game engine that it was made for. That is why you have to make some settings adjustments. You need to adjust some things with the shader editor so that you could get your model to look as close as possible as how it would appear inside the game engine. It would not necessarily be 100% like how it is you saw in the actual game footage or in the actual gameplay, but we're just trying to make it look presentable. That's why you make some adjustments to the nodes, to the specular settings, to the shader node settings, and so on and so forth. Thanks for watching.